Do you have kids, or have you ever observed a kid, 5 or a 6-year-old kid, speaking their language perfectly, uttering perfectly grammatical sentences with perfect pitch and pronunciation? And the reason why these kids are so good with their own native language is because they learn in a brain-friendly way. They absorb patterns. They don't learn grammar rules. They don't try to cram information. It just comes to them. And this is what this video is about. I'm going to show you a few simple tips to make that happen as an adult. So the point I want to make is not that kids are better at learning languages. They're simply acquire language while we try to study languages. That makes a huge difference. And this is what this video is about. I'm going to show you a few simple tips in order to acquire the language in a brain-friendly way and not just study or cramming and suffer, etc. Oh, and one more thing. Just stay tuned until the end of the video because apart from the usual tips, you're going to get one cool question and one cool tip. When I was reading the book by Kato Lomb, a very famous Hungarian polyglot, a sentence in particular struck me. You cannot learn language from grammar, but grammar from language. That sentence has a profound meaning in the way we approach languages. And for example, if you take a look at a 5 or 6-year-old kid, they utter entire sentences and grammatically correct entire sentences of that. And how do they do that if they have never ever seen a grammar book? On the other hand, adults try to learn and try to cram grammar rules all the time, and they end up not even speaking the language. So there must be something there. Either we do something wrong or kids do something right. And the answer is, as adults, we have advantages, but we should also learn in a brain-friendly way. So remember, learn grammar from language and not the other way around. So given that fundamental rule of thumb of learning grammar from language, you might want to get compelling content, compelling material where you can find real language, conversations, interactions, and then you can learn language and you can extract patterns from that compelling content. You can still buy grammar books if you want and keep them as a reference, but don't spend too much time trying to understand grammar rules and spending too much time on those grammar books. Try to focus most of your time on compelling content and learn grammar as a consequence of that. One of the key features of compelling content is grammar notes. Grammar notes are very useful in explaining the obscure points that you find sometimes in text when, for example, you tackle distant languages that have obscure or very difficult grammar points. But the trick here is not to focus too much on these grammar notes. You want to go through them, understand the meaning, and then once you progress and move forward in the language, you will go back in time and these grammar notes will be easily understandable. So don't spend too much time on grammar notes because everything will be clearer and clearer the more you move forward. Another cool thing that you can do is to extract patterns from the compelling content. Our brain is a machine for figuring out patterns in everything in life, and obviously language learning is no exception. One of the key things you want to do in order to internalize the grammar patterns of a new language is actually to extract patterns from compelling content. One cool way of doing that is extracting a sentence, for example, from a text, and then comparing the corresponding structure in your own native language. Our brain is a machine, and it's a machine that figures out patterns in everything we do, ranging from language learning to motor skills, sports. So you want to leverage that power of the brain in order to extract patterns. Let me give you an example. Let's suppose that I am learning Italian. So let's suppose that I stumble upon the sentence, sono 3 mesi che imparo l'inglese. I've been learning English for 3 months. So the underlying pattern is sono 3 mesi che, sono is the plural of they are, 3 mesi, 3 months, che imparo, that, conjunction, imparo, I learn English. And in English, the corresponding pattern is subject, have, conjugated, been, and verb in ing. I have been learning, and then for an expression of time. And if you simply take a piece of paper and compare the two expressions, you can then form your own patterns. You have, I have been doing this. Sono 3 mesi che. Maybe you want to say something like, sono 2 mesi che corro. So I've been running for 2 months. So by extracting the patterns, then you can simply change and modify the elements and form new patterns and to save whatever you want. This is extremely effective. And so now, as promised, I have one final cool tip. Another cool trick that you can do in order to refine and strengthen your extrapolation of patterns, so to speak, is to embed emotions into the process. Going back to the example before, is to get the example, the pattern that you have extrapolated, and form your own sentences that are personal to you. Let's suppose that you really have started running in the park nearby. So maybe you learned a pattern like, I have been smoking for 3 years, and instead you want to say, I have been running for 2 months. You say it in Italian, or you want to say it in another language. So for every pattern that you extrapolate, form at least one sentence that resonates with you, that is personal, that has to do with something that happened to you, something you do every day. It can be habits, it can be people, it can be places. The important thing is that it's personal and it's a little bit, or at least a little bit emotional. And that makes a huge difference when it comes to not only absorbing the pattern, but also reproducing it. So the question goes like this. What do you do to learn grammar? Do you use grammar books, or you prefer language learning material where you're going to extract grammar patterns from? Please share your strategies, your techniques, and drop a comment in the section below.